Well, it's our favorite hour of the month, Brandon. We're,
it's
we're,
my it's my favorite hour, Jim, and I'll tell you, I just appreciate everybody joining us to talk about these subjects that are critical and important, and especially as we head into a difficult time for many drivers and everything. So, Jim, always good to be here with you, and thanks again for having me.
it's always fun doing these things, partner. It's always a good time. So I'm enjoying talking through strategy on how to do uh, how to train and how to get through
Yeah,
difficult challenges.
absolutely,
So
absolutely, and of course, hearing everybody's thoughts on the call, and one thing I know you're going to get to this and everything, but we absolutely love to hear from you. We're happy that you're here. We're happy that you're wanting to join in the conversation. It's a huge part of this for us, as we're moving into the kind of the latter part of 2025. Oh my goodness, here we go into Q4, and just hearing the continual ways that people are trying to improve the safety and the culture of their organizations, keeping their drivers safe, looking at operations and production and safety and all of those kind of things that if we think about in our row, we tend to take away some of that element of being able to expand it to what it is that's critical, that keeps us safe and keeps us operational and keeps us going, right?
100%. This is a great topic to talk about, especially as we're getting into the winter season. There are so many different challenges that plague our fleets as we're going through this, and this is one that completely shuts your fleet down at times. If you're broke down, or there's an ice storm, or you're sleeted over, and there's all sorts of things that could go wrong. And how do you do with that? What do you do, and how does that how do you work those challenges?
I was a driver for 20 years, and we would face that as an over-the-road truck driver and also as a regional truck driver that would go in the wintertime up into Upper Peninsula, Michigan, International Falls up into Canada through the winter and everything. I remember this time of year just start to feel a little bit like, and then I saw Game of Thrones and Winter is Coming, Jon Snow, and I pinned it right then, is that I know why there's this feeling of things are going to slow down. The money's not going to roll in as much. We're going to have all of these other challenges with even maintenance on vehicles and staying out there and keeping on trucking. So as my personal relationship to this is really knowing that we tend to have things hit us and then we figure it out. But if we can see that these things are coming, can we start to focus our mind and even focus our strategy with drivers on how to get through these kind of challenges and get through these opportunities?
Absolutely, Brandon. Well, since you have the mic, I'm gonna keep it on your side of the court and tell everybody a little bit about yourself. I know
Well, Jim,
everybody's probably heard from you
you're
before, but
first on this thing. I'll give it a shot. I'm Brandon Wooden, and I am right now about 34 years into the industry. This thing is a little outdated, maybe by a year, but 34 years in the transportation industry. Much of it as a driver and driver trainer, safety supervisor, onboarding director, and coordinator. So when I say that I've devoted quite a bit of my career to figuring out how to how to help people get better at the job that they're going to be doing. It's literally what I've done. So, facing those kind of challenges, and many of the people that are on the call right now, I'm sure you could give me a thumbs up if you wanted to use the little thumbs up sign or something like that to say that this is when we start to think, this is going to be some months ahead to get through. I think that we're all kind of looking at that, and to try to get it to where we know that we've done what we can to prepare drivers for what's up next. We do that with entry level driver training all the time. Are we preparing them to take a test? Or are we preparing them to be a good, safe driver in the industry, productive, and all of these kind of things? And the challenges come from being too in our space instead of starting to think about what we can do now to get ready for winter coming. Right, Jon Snow?
right. I am Jim Warsdale. I'm your master of ceremonies. I am with my buddy Brandon, who is a wealth of knowledge. But I've been in this industry for 24 years on the operations side of things. I was with some large carriers, Ryder, Conway Freight, LTL, and my last role prior to being at Keller was a director of safety and transportation for a flooring distribution company. So I've worn many hats. I've seen different aspects of things, and Brandon and I are here to talk through strategies and how to improve your fleets and to work through this. So, Brandon, before we get started, I would really like to talk a little bit about just glaze over what we talked about last time. It was, training through the driver's eyes. How important that was. The topic. Is your team fully vested in your training process, and how do you obtain buy-in?
That's absolutely right, Jim. So, when we think about it, it really leads into this topic very well as well, right? If we're trying to train to the stuff, think about it. We all know what the stuff is. We got slick roads out there. We've got slowdowns in freight. We've got delays. We've got maintenance issues. We've got all of these critical elements that we're working on. But here's what the driver is kind of going through. I need to still make money in a time when it's harder to make money. Sorry to say that, but guys, as a driver, that's what it is, man. Make hay, make hay while the sun shines is something we say on the farm, but we don't really get the opportunity to do that when this is what we do year round. And facing those challenges of winter through the driver's eye is really a good way to start to steer your focus on how to help your driver become prepared for that, know that they have the tools and the resources they need to be effective even when the weather gets pretty dicey and they have to make critical decisions based on the information that they have, the information that you're giving them, and the job that they still have to do. And I think it's a good way of saying last time visiting that subject just a little bit and moving it into this one. Probably not a bad transition or segue, right?
100%. So we're talking a little bit about winter weather driving. We're getting into the fourth. We're halfway through October, getting into the fourth quarter, doing what we're doing. Let's talk about best practices for driving. What sort of things can you do? Can you train to do as you're working up to this? What sort of conversations can you have with your fleet at this
Well,
point to
well,
prepare you?
I love that you have pre-trip inspections up there, and here's why. If you're not promoting decent pre-trip inspections when the weather is good, you ain't going to get anything done with it now that the weather is bad. I'm just saying, if you decide to start your pre-trip training and you start to get people doing active pre-trip inspections every day, start it when the weather is good, because when the weather is bad, there are a lot of other things that are going to get in the way of a driver doing inspections. And then comes the excuses. Guys, when drivers aren't doing inspections, they typically have a lot of excuses piled up, like, well, it just came out of the shop, or it was good yesterday, or, any number of the last guy that drove the truck, because I'm in a slip seat operation, his job was to check this truck. And so I'm supposed to be able to jump in and go. All of these things are excuses for, I don't have time to do it. I feel like I'm running late. I'm pressured. I'm pushed. And so I'm going to start to create those excuses not to do a pre-trip inspection. It can also be, I was never taught how to do that, which we know is kind of not exactly true. But if it's not recent current training that says these are the most essential elements for you to make sure that your vehicle is ready for whatever it might have to go through or what you're putting it through, that's the reasons to promote a pre-trip inspection. If you stay in the what to check, not as good as saying, here's why you should check it. Here, and now that you think that you should be checking it because you're convinced of that, here's some items to check. Here's some items that are really going to be critical as we move into wintertime if you want to keep going and you want to keep moving, right?
Yep. Brandon, a question for you.
Yeah.
When investigating an accident, how many times have you heard "too fast for condition" when you're doing something?
I want to say that I've heard that and an inattention, whenever the driver is distracted. So those two things, this driver was distracted, it caused a hard braking event, or it actually caused the accident. But going too fast for conditions in the wintertime, number one with a ringing endorsement is that tends to be the number one thing that you hear. Is I got in a hurry, or I felt like it was okay to go, and so I maintained its speed, and I wasn't aware of the conditions. Drivers won't go out there, just saying, and I know there are a ton of them out there, and some of them may do this, but a driver is not going to go out on purpose and try to get themselves in trouble. Typically speaking, if they're driving too fast for conditions, the conditions change suddenly and I wasn't aware of the change. Or I find myself in a situation believing that it's safer to go than it actually is. When you think about it, there's a lot of times you don't really know what that road's going to be like until you get out on it. I remember sitting in truck stops watching a blizzard coming in and looking up on the road to see if there's anybody traveling on that road right now and how fast they were going. And once I started to see that traffic speeds would start to pick up a little bit, or I'd see a plow or two go through or something like that, then I kind of knew, okay, this is a little safer to go. But I still thought, it could change at any time, and so I'm going to be incredibly careful. I'm also going to adjust my hours of service. I'm going to look for places where I can get pulled over. If I have to go a huge stretch with no place to pull over, is it really good to go right then? So adjusting those driving habits, just like you were saying, and also preparing for emergencies to say if something does happen.
So that's a great segue. So as an ex CDL driver over the years, you've got well over 1 million miles. Explain to me, you're pulling a load, the truck breaks down, you're having issues. How are you preparing for that before it even happens? How are you getting ahead of that?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you that a lot of times in the wintertime you get lucky, just a little bit. Now we have a lot better tools. We've got cell phones, we've got better computers, satellite equipment, and everything to where we can sense breakdowns happening and we can get help out there. Now, Jim, I started driving in the early 1990s, and my first load, not for nothing, my first load was a little was with a little company here in Joplin, Missouri, and I had to run my very first load as a truck driver solo was to New York City. Everybody is going to start to gasp right now on the call that you're kidding me. This brand new driver in the 1990s with no cell phone or anything. His very first load at 22 years old was to New York City, and it absolutely was. Meanwhile, it was late in November, early December when I was doing that, and there was a lake effect snowstorm that ripped through Pennsylvania. Guess who was driving through that winter snowstorm and had no way of really forecasting it was going to happen?
Sure.
So I saw a lot of other trucks that had pulled over. They had found that safe space, and here I was still going. I couldn't find a way to pull over. I wasn't comfortable in my own abilities to get pulled over when the road is covered with snow. So I got lucky and I was able to keep it safely, get it to the destination. And the funny story about that is once I got to New York and got into that, the receiver looked at me and said, "What are you doing here? Everybody is stuck in Pennsylvania in this thing." So felt kind of like big time about that, but at the same time, not knowing ahead. So when we talk about the ways to be prepared, the ways to prepare ourselves, it's really going to be if something was to happen, do I at least have a communication source to get out there? Do I have and we could get into the what. Do I have blankets? Do I have extra water if I'm going to be here for a while? Do I have some food stores on the truck? For a lot of these delivery drivers that are more local or regional, it's not a bad idea to have a winter kit in place to where they can say, yep, if anything was to happen, I at least know that until somebody can get to me, I can be okay. There are a lot of different ways to think about that, but I think that a lot of times it's that getting it to the driver. If something was to happen, what do I have prepared? We can be prescriptive too much in training drivers, I think. Getting a driver to where they can get a sense of this kind of thing, or they can be looking at the weather, they can be paying attention to those things, talking to their dispatchers, making sure that everybody's got the mission and what's going to happen here so that nobody is confused and nobody is left behind on it, right?
No, I think everything goes into the details, and you might be talking to them the details about the job and the load and the things that they need got going on. But if you're not really prepping them for that load, having emergency blankets if they broke down, that truck's not on. It's going to get real cold real fast, being able to, stay warm and to have an emergency ration of food is a big deal at this point, and have some water. So
Absolutely. Jim, one of the things that we love to do on this call is we love to hear from you. So we love it that you've joined us. We see that some of these names are kind of familiar. Some of you guys are new to the concept of this show or this town hall, but part of this is that we do want to hear from you. So Jim, if you want to go over kind of some of the technical details, if they want to raise a
sure.
hand and offer a
Yep.
question, or jump in with
Yep.
the chat, or unmute their mics, right?
Absolutely. So we do have a mute unmute function, and we do have, you can raise your hand to ask questions. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say about winter roads and the challenges that your fleets are dealing with on a regular basis. So as we're talking through this, if we have any questions or anything that you'd like us to discuss, feel free to raise your hand. We'll be glad to discuss it. So
I'm going to be the first one to raise my hand real quick and ask the crowd this. When do you start to think and plan and prepare for winter as a company, as a safety department, as people that are looking at, even in operations, things are going to maybe slow down a little bit. How prepared is the organization for winter? We're asking a lot of the drivers, prepare for winter. It's going to be this, but when do we start to really get in there and say, winter's coming? We need to start to prepare now. I mean, you see the squirrels out there gathering nuts way early. and so when do we start to gather our nuts together and make sure that we've got enough to survive the winter? That's the question for the group. Raise your hand. Let us know. Yeah, Christopher.
Hi, here at Cintas, we actually just started last week a series of calls preparing the locations so that they have what they need, so that they can, kind of like what you mentioned, just start getting ready, whether it's for emergency packs that the drivers have on their vehicles, making sure all the way down to having ice melt, having scrapers, all of that sort of thing. Yeah, we actually started this week.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing when you're doing that, Christopher. How many of your drivers are kind of like, this is way too early right now? Heck, I know in Southwest Missouri right now, we're 85 degrees today. And, Jim is down in Tampa, Florida. So, hey, he's playing golf this afternoon. But what is the reaction and the response, Christopher, of your drivers? You're telling them, hey, this is coming. Do you see that kind of thing of them saying, yeah, yeah, yeah? Or do you see them more saying, yeah, yeah, yeah? There's two different ways of saying, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sure, you're absolutely right. Yeah, we start with the supervisors and managers,
okay,
and then they'll start talking to their different teams. And you're absolutely right. This time of year here in Chicago, we're still looking at great weather, 68 degrees. But yeah, we have to help them see. You got to start early. You're right.
I wonder if sometimes, because I would get those messages fairly early too, and I'll be perfectly honest, as a driver, as one of those guys that said, come on, man, we're still, everything is still great and everything. I'll get all of that ready. I understand what you're saying, but I wonder if also the anxiety that it starts to build. I've always wondered this. Is when we start to tell somebody, hey, get ready for this, this is coming, this is coming. If suddenly we don't start to see this fall off of enthusiasm maybe for getting out and doing the job, when does that start to enter in for drivers? You think about the days get shorter, we get less daylight, we're in foul weather and everything. I know this is going to be the most difficult part of my year, and how do I prepare mentally for that? How do I strengthen my mental resolve for that? Christopher, do you ever, with your organization, ever go to that? Here's how it's going to feel to have shorter days, to have other people that are more dangerous on the roads.
It really is a challenge. Yeah, I've been doing this for quite some time, and I agree with you. We do have individuals who, for whatever reason, lose that enthusiasm. We try to do a holistic thing. We even have training about daylight savings time.
Yeah.
Smooth.
Yeah, daylight savings time was never intended for trucking companies, was it? Well, I like the idea of saying, of just telling drivers, and above all else, we got your back. we know what you're going to be doing. We know how this is going to be challenging, more challenging, especially newer drivers. Think about it. You know, some of your drivers, maybe in their first or second season out there working right now, they've had, if they're in their second season, they've had a season of winter. They may be just, you know, it may be PTSD for them just a little bit moving into that second year. And a lot of times, Jim, I just think that it takes leadership saying, you know what? We are prepared for this too. We know that things may slow down a little bit. We've got your back because safety is still the number one thing for us. And so that drivers also don't get this feeling like the organization needs freight moved so bad that they will risk my safety just to get it there. Now, we realize you don't believe that. Safety is paramount to your organizations, and keeping your people safe is as well. But resonating that within the masses that are doing the work sometimes can really give that vote of confidence that they're going to make the right decisions, and then we'll show you how to make those right decisions. You know, one way I would train drivers that were coming through my CDL school is exactly the story that I told. If I'm watching the road before I get out on it and I start to see how fast traffic is moving or slow traffic is moving, am I spending my time to just sit back there and watch the snow fly? Or am I really doing that to actively see that the conditions are getting better so that I can make better decisions? But that's something that everybody needs to know, that your decision for what is safe to do next is the number one and best decision. Jim, what do you think? Does that seem to be kind of one
No,
of the things to do?
absolutely. It rings a bell with what you've got going on with your fleet. I think the winter weather aspect of things, once people start thinking about it, you're right, the stress levels rise. And then it's a two-pronged effect. You got winter weather, and then you got the holiday driving all putting together at that same time. So, you may not be a delivery driver or a package delivery driver, but you're pulling a load. And guess what happens? What happens around the holidays? The congestion, the people, there's more people, everybody's rushing. Guess what happens? You get into that mode to start rushing, and everything becomes shorter, and you're making shorter decisions, and you're upset and you're short. And how does that work? How do you slow your process down and make sure you're doing all the right things in your vehicle inspection, and giving yourself the right time and the right space when you're
But
operating
Jim,
that vehicle?
But Jim, Christmas time is supposed to be the time of peace and all of those kind of things, right? I don't
Right,
think the road ever
right.
shows that as much. I'm reminded of the scene in a Christmas Vacation, the very first scene on that thing where they're cutting down the Christmas tree and loaded it onto the family truckster, and then getting in that kind of a situation with the truck. The truck driver is doing their job. They're just out there doing their job, and there are other people that are going to be distracted that we got to watch out for, and they are unusually distracted in the wintertime. What we feel as professional drivers gets our gets our nerves up just a little bit. For one of these people that's just out there trying to get groceries or trying to do the Christmas shopping, it's way ratcheted up, and they don't have near the experience behind the wheel that you do. So that distracted driving focus certainly certainly does resonate. I think about that scene every time winter approaches, and I was a truck driver.
It's one of my favorite Christmas movies, so I love that scene too. It's great.
that That's right. Well, guys, when you're thinking about, and a lot of times, if you're new to this presentation or new to this show, what we try to do with this show is we try to say there are a lot of things that we do that are the same things that we do every time, but when we look at the industry, we're doing the same things over and over again, and we're not really getting better as an industry on these kind of safety topics. So hopefully what Jim and I are able to do is start to talk about how to think about the things differently. This doesn't mean stop doing the things. The things have to be done, and they have to be presented and demonstrated. We talk a lot about testing. Testing is super important so that you know that you've done the critical things to keep your drivers safe. But what we want to see is that if organizations can start to think of the way that they communicate with their drivers, the way that they ask questions of their drivers, the way that they engage drivers in the process of taking these things and putting it into action. Janice is one of her favorite phrases that I use is the Alice Cooper effect. If we're learning this thing for the thing that immediately we're going to do next with it, talk about learning to pass a test. if we learn how to do a vehicle inspection so we can pass the test that you have for us to say that we know how to do the vehicle inspection, if we're not immediately putting that into action later on, school's out forever. We'll forget everything that we need because we learned it to do the activity that we were called upon to do. Getting real change into people and the way that they see their jobs is to give them that overall, here's what we think about this thing. Here's what we can expect together. Here's what we're prepared for so that we can help you fulfill your part of that purpose. Now, I know that sounds maybe a little froofy to a lot of people, but my goodness, it works. Jim, we've seen it work at several companies through our Principles of Defensive Driving program, even our entry-level driver program. We've seen that work, right? That the learners take to it and they start to make real change happen.
Yeah, it's amazing that when we're on these ranges having these conversations and these drivers get that aha moment where they understand and change the behavior as we're sitting there in the driver's seat. It's why we do what we do on a regular basis. So
it is.
I'm going to piggyback on what you're talking about here. So we talk a lot about communication. We're leading up. We're communicating 60 days prior to this. Is there any way we can train on this? Are there some opportunities we can train and have some conversations? I know you and I were talking about it last week, talking a little bit about simulators and skid pads and some other things and some some of the opportunities that you and I have been able to work on together. How does that work and how would that benefit fleets?
No, I'll tell you what. I'm. This is a shameless plug for one of my favorite trucking schools out there, but Fox Valley Technical College. They are there in Appleton, Wisconsin, and they have a really great skid pad over there. They're not paying for the show. They're not doing anything like that, but I can tell you, I've skidded trucks around on that one where I was training at Crowder College in Neosho, Missouri. I was a driver trainer there, and we had a skid pad that was interesting at best. The point is that simulators, skid pads, any of these kind of things that we use can be used as a toy. Hey, it's a lot of fun. I skidded a truck around for a little bit and got it out and got it back again. But what we really want to say is that any of these tools or toys that has a testing element to it to see that we improved from the experience. Simulators, if you don't have access to a skid pad, a simulator is a great time to ratchet up the slickness of the road or something like this. But if you're using a simulator to just get somebody behind the wheel to let them drive on a computer for a while, you're missing the critical point of simulators. And I've talked to a lot of simulator companies before, and anything from Virage to L3 to any of these simulator companies. And I said, if you could only say that we have a game that we're playing on this that will critically start to see my ability to evaluate and analyze the road conditions that I'm on or how I'm moving through that situation instead of just getting out there and letting me drive. It's the best way to use a simulator. Ask if you have, how many does have simulators? If you could raise your hand, if you have simulators at your company or even access to one. Again, no shameless plugs here for anything, but how many of you all are using simulators in some way? Christopher, I think Cintas, I think you guys have a few simulators at some of your locations.
Yeah, I believe it's more local. But
gotcha.
No, we don't have anything. I'm actually making notes now. Do you have any recommendations?
I couldn't do that to you. I'm sorry, but what I can tell you is that when you go to the company and you're thinking about getting a simulator, ask them if you can create specific programs that will identify like crash causation or some defensive driving mode that you can go, but actual simulations that they can build into the program. Say I want a winter simulation that includes being able to increase the ice road condition as a person is driving. Anything like that can get very specific. Definitely ask your sales reps those questions about getting a simulator that would work for these situations. Simulators are great, but they're only great if they're used for a short amount of time to assess somebody's progress and being able to figure out what to do next, manage their heart rate and their their level through the thing. So it's not a plug for a specific company or not, but definitely if you're looking at a simulator, ask your rep. I want to be able to build programs that are specific to what my driver is going to be doing, and I want those programs built with a time frame for them. 5 to 10 minutes on a simulator is all you ever need to start to say, now let's work on this, let's work on this. When I think about simulators, I was a swim coach for a youth swim coach for a while, and what we would have is we would have the pool where people were racing, and then we would have the lap pool where we put people on drill sets. We do a drill set and tell the swimmer to drill set slowly so that they can build the muscle memory slowly. When they get into the racing lane, I had one instruction for them: swim fast, because that's when we're actually going to put it out there and put it into use. But we're going to build on the drill sets that we create through simulation, practice, and principles of defensive driver training. We use range simulations for close quarter maneuvering. By the way, Jim, not a bad idea if you're using principles of defensive driving to say, hey, winter's coming and we're also going to see that the areas that we pull into aren't as big anymore. They got snow piles everywhere and doors may not be working and you may not be able to see all the hazards. So setting up your principles of defensive driving course in the fall so that you can say, guess what, guys, in the summer, we had it out to this level. In the winter, we're going to put some choke points in there that you have to navigate around. And then always remember that when you're doing any kind of a simulation, you're really trying to assess behavior over what they're doing. If you set up a range where it's cones everywhere, yes, not hitting the cone is important, but what they're doing to avoid hitting the cone is more important. Are they trying for it, or are they saying, you know what, this is too tight, I'm going to reposition right now to get myself safely through it? So never think that you're actually looking for what is happening as much as you're trying to get to the why it's happening whenever you're setting up a range or a simulation or anything like that. That's probably more than anybody wants to hear Brandon Wooden talk about simulators, but I love them. I think they're great. We use them all the time at the trucking school. But when I got there, we were using them just to set somebody on and brake so that they could get behind the wheel and play a video game for a while. And I immediately said, you know what? I don't like my teams to do something that's not going to be productive. Maybe I'm a little bit more of a tough coach that way, but let's get some use out of these things instead of having them collect dust. Does that make sense?
No, it's a great starting point before you get into the practical application of being out there in the truck. I think nothing could prepare you for actually being in there where the ice, you got the black ice there and you can't stop the vehicle, the stress level, the heart rate is just through the roof at that point. I don't think anybody can prepare you for that, but trying to do your best, like you said, doing your laps in the swim pool and making sure that you're prepared for your race, I think is the important part. So
absolutely. When we're building that muscle memory, we're building our mental muscle memory as well. You know, am I prepared to make the right decision at the right time? Your brain's a muscle. And that muscle is the thing that has to do it first. Everything that we do with our bodies has to originate in how we think about moving through it in our mind. Winter is no different. How I think that I'm going to move through these harsher conditions or everything motivates the way that I steer that truck through it or that vehicle through it. So if we're not mentally looking at all of those things and making those kind of decisions before we get out on the road, all we're doing is we're throwing this projectile down the road and hoping that things work out. Think about it. You guys that are driving through winter storms, have you ever get caught on black ice before? Didn't expect it was going to be there, and suddenly you're on black ice. Do you feel like you have any control of that vehicle at all? If you say that you do, you're wrong, because you are now just a projectile going down the road and hoping for the best. You can't get stopped. So the better thing to do is to say, I don't want to get to that point. I don't want to see that happening, and I'm going to make the best decisions to say that that never happens to me when I'm out there driving. Makes sense, right?
It goes back to one of our principles, and you love talking about this in the principles of defensive driving. Driving on an island, keeping everybody from away from you, your speed and space management, making sure that you're going slow enough and you've built enough cushion in front of you that everything is going to happen in front of you, and you don't have to worry about it because you've got your space and you're at a safe speed and you're going below the speed limit and making sure that you're doing all the right things for those conditions. It's a big part of being able to control that vehicle.
It's a cultural thing too. I will say that. I remember, and not meaning to go back to COVID or anything like that, but where everybody had to stand 6 feet apart. And you could see that when people would queue up and stand right next to each other, or people would, get into the crowds and want to be amongst the crowd and close and close and close and close. I call it jumping into the mosh pit. If you've ever been at a concert, like Janice and I have been at a couple of these concerts where they had mosh pits. Janice, I'm looking at you. So are you the person that jumps in the middle of the mosh pit, or are you the person that stands back a little bit on the balcony and goes, not sure I want to get that close to people right now? When we went through COVID, I was like, hey, I feel like I'm defensive driving all over the place. I don't want anybody 6 feet from me. I can have my own space and my own ability to, if I stumble or something, I'm at least not going to stumble into somebody. So yeah, think back to COVID and say, hey, remember when we all had 6 feet of space around about each other? Now take that 6 feet of space at 1 mile an hour and expand it out to 70 miles an hour, and that's how much space you should probably be generating. I know the math isn't perfect, but yeah, with that increased, you're talking about increased congestion, but tight delivery deadlines. This is what we were talking about. If you don't articulate to your drivers that we understand it as well, and we are prepared as a company for when these things are going to be delayed, we've alerted our customers that there may be a delay here, and we trust what you're looking at to get our load safely down the road. This is a way that you partner with your teams. This is a way that you show that respect. This is the way that you can show them that you've got their back when things are going to get rough. So I cannot stress that enough. As a former director of driver onboarding, I can tell you that we would take new drivers, and when they heard that, we understand that it's going to take you a while to get this, they were so much more relaxed, so much more receptive to be able to do their best work at any time that we called upon them to do that. So it's important. Stress to your drivers. We all go through this, not you go through this and we sit back there and force you to go through it. Sorry, some of your drivers will feel that way, especially as they come into winter.
So cold weather, things are getting colder, shorter days,
Yeah.
lots of challenges. Your body's telling you at 6 o'clock that it's bedtime. How do you fight driver fatigue? Like, how are you? That is something that plagues the industry.
Hey, buddy, my body is telling me at 4 o'clock every day that it's time to start to slow down. I think that we tend to muscle through sometimes. We tend to say, hey, I can make it. I can make it. I can make it. Heck, it's very common in the industry. Hey, we get the job done. Without Trucks America stops. That's because we keep it going. We keep it going and everything. Really, Jim, helping drivers kind of get that sense of what is the priority and what's the most important thing. And I think that sometimes, and again, I don't mean to be hypercritical about the way that operations and production works with the transportation side of the supply chain, but it seems like sometimes it does a little bit of this. And to me, I always thought that if we started to make this a little bit more of a harmony between, we understand that it's taking a little while longer, we've got your back, we might actually see things start to progress a little bit better. I'm making better decisions, so I'm getting rest when I should. I know that my company and my customers need me to be fit and well awake whenever I get there. I know that this is how I'm contributing to the system. So training a lot of times with this, tell us what your biggest concerns are moving into the wintertime. I've asked drivers that before. Hey, I have a town hall meeting of your own and say, we just want to clear the air on some things. Winter's coming. How do you guys feel about that? What do you feel about us being prepared enough for that? And then listen to them. granted, you're going to have some of them about stuff, but if you are really good at being able to continually ask your drivers, I want to hear from you. I want to hear how you're feeling moving into winter. And yeah, I got it, boss. Probably isn't the answer. It's probably going to be, I know there are some things going through your head. Let's talk about those. Let's see how we work together as we make it through the winter time together. We're going to sit in I know whenever I'm on a call with you, Jim, it sounds a little bit like I want us to sit in a room together holding hands and singing Kumbaya. But it's a team. Everything is about building that team, coaching that team, making sure that team believes in you as a coach, believes in you as an organization that they want to play for. That's what builds your people that will go the extra mile for you and the people that'll take care of what you value the most.
Nope, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. So now we are 30 plus years since you started your driving career.
Yeah, right.
And a lot has changed, right? Technology wise, working through that. You got cell phones, you got Fleetmatics, you got driver cameras. So want to talk to you a little bit about, tell me a little bit about things. How can you stay on schedule without sacrificing safety? What sort of things can we use to help us?
I'm going to go. First of all, I think everybody kind of knows the things that are out there. They know that there are weather apps. They know that there's telematics. They know that there's even, ways that you can digitally get in touch with the highway going down. Every bit of this stuff is now available to us with technology. The thing that I'm going to address is that with all of this technology becomes a whole new line of distractions as well if we're driving along. And this is going to be from mostly other drivers that are driving along and they got a big screen up here. Even though that screen, hey, don't look at it. Don't look at that screen. Don't look at that screen. Don't look at that screen. Everybody's looking at that screen. And if they're not looking at that screen, they probably got a cell phone in their hand. And they are totally not aware until it's too late that suddenly they are just a projectile going down the road. They have no idea until it's way too late. And then there's panic that ensues. So even as we're checking a weather app, if we're not in a really good place to check that weather app before we start moving with it, hey, we're just in it and going, and then whatever happens will happen. So it's about planning. How do you use those things in advance? How do you use alternate ways of like signaling, ice alerts? I know there's an ice alert feature on a lot of trucks and a lot of systems, but those things are something to really focus on how we use them, not just that they're there.
I was in an Uber a couple weeks ago and jumping in the Uber, and you think the guy's focused on what he's doing. He's watching his favorite football team on the thing, and I'm wondering. I'm asking if he knows where I'm going, and he's got the directions. He was so dialed in on that NFL game on that Sunday. I was like, how in the world is this guy?
Well, you should never be in Wisconsin in an Uber when the Green Bay Packers are playing, Jim.
Oh,
you should know better. That's on you. What do you guys think? Using the technology, I think that we know that the technology is out there. If nothing else, we can Google search it and go find something. Is one weather app better than another? It's a matter of opinion. But how you use those apps and how you get people to really focus on how to use them as a tool and not just something that's on in the background and more passive that way. What do y'all think? Is that a message you try to share with your teams? Is that a questions that you typically ask of your drivers? Jump in and tell us what you do to prepare for winter. I want to hear what you and your company are doing.
On top of that, is there a specific tool that you use that you just love, that you think is the cat's meow at this point?
Hey,
and we use it. Every one of our drivers uses this, and they think this is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
If we're going to shamelessly plug a trucking school, we might as well have our guests or our welcome guests on the call plug something that you all use that you really think is the cat's meow. Christopher, if you're still listening, what does Cintas use for your weather alerts and for your communication?
Yeah, we do something a little bit different. We have a designated weather champion at each location.
Oh, that is cool.
That
And
is
then
cool.
that person is responsible to communicate to management because they're monitoring the weather. And they communicate to management, and then management gets it out to the drivers if impending bad weather, something such as that. So it's just something that, and it's a volunteer thing. So it's not like uh, this is something added on to their job, but it's something that someone wants to do. We find someone on one of our safety teams who is engaged very much so, and we say, hey, this is something we really need, whether in hot weather or in cold weather. Just jump on the weather radio throughout the day and make sure that we are aware of anything
That
coming up.
So,
Christopher, that is fantastic. And we Jim, you and I talk all the time about champions. Who do you find in
mhm.
your organization that are the ones that can be your coaches? Christopher, I think you're finding your coaches through all of this as well, and that's just brilliant. Love to hear that. Looks like James
Fantastic.
is using Infinity Workforce Solutions. I love that. Yeah, we have some training videos as well at JJ Keller. So if you're interested, I know we're going to get to some shameless plugs for our programs on principles of defensive driving, entry-level driver training, all of these things that we have at Keller. But definitely putting people on training videos. My question about training videos is what we're doing there, and is there, what kind of questions do we ask later on when it's a more of a, hey, now that you've done the training, what do you think is going to happen, or how do you think this is going to be? So I love the idea that here's the training videos, here's the what we want you to know, and then to have your safety supervisors, your managers, your driver managers say, as we're approaching winter, start to have these conversations with drivers as well. Start it now. Start to find out how, hey, are you nervous about wintertime? What do you think is going to be coming up? How are we getting prepared together? So I cannot stress enough, whatever tool you use, going in there, being able to also follow up with that communication of how you're going to be a team moving through this together can be critical.
Luma training nuggets for not just winter, but severe driving. Wow.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Michael, I'm going to tell you, man, I have done a lot of work in this industry. I have not heard Luma before. That's really cool. I'm going to look it up right now.
If I may, it's a wonderful
Please.
program. I've been in this business. I'm an old timer. I'm what you call a moss covered leatherback.
Jim, I want
in.
that to be my what I'm called around Keller right now. Say that one more time so that I can make sure I get it right.
I am a moss covered leatherback.
Got it.
I
Okay.
love it, Michael.
That's
Great.
that's hysterical.
So tell us a little more about Luma or training nuggets. What are training nuggets? We have these things that are very short. We call them either corrective action trainings or short snips that are probably a minute and a half long on a variety of topics that you can use through our Training on Demand series or Training Management Center. But these training nuggets, what do they do?
They're item specific. They can take anywhere from 2 minutes to 5 minutes. I think the longest maybe 7 minutes, because that way you don't go beyond the attention span, or as I always like to say, your mind will only absorb what your city down part will tolerate. And so
That's great. Yeah, our mind is definitely attached to our heads are definitely attached to the things that we're sitting on every once in a while. In that, if I can't stand sitting in the chair for a while, there's no way it's going into my brain, right?
and what's nice with the Loom and Nuggets, it becomes self-competitive. Uh, all of our drivers are company drivers and owner operators, and we're an auto hauler.
Okay.
So we're very cautious, very critical of seasonal changes, because everything we do, much like a flatbed company or a heavy haul company, it's all exposed to the elements. So you don't just have the slippery roads and the four-wheelers going by in their SUVs thinking I can go 90 miles an hour till they realize they can't stop any faster.
Yeah.
And but the Luma Nuggets are just so wonderful. I would encourage anybody, just Google Luma and Luma, and it's a wonderful program, wonderful format. I've been utilizing Luma now, about 10 years, and with great
When did when
success.
did you when did you start working as a sales rep for the company, Michael?
I haven't. I just like the program so much. And it's very easy to utilize, and it's not just for learning. We also do we'll have a quarterly town hall meeting with all our drivers, and so we do that through Luma Live. And instead of trying to set up a Teams or a Zoom or a this or a that, because everybody has Luma pre-installed on their electronic logging device on our work tablets and all our trucks. They just hit that logo, and then it'll take them right to the Luma Live meetings where we have our town hall meetings.
Very,
So,
very
yeah.
cool. For anybody on the call who knows who doesn't have one of these things, Michael, I'm going to interrupt you just a second to plug what we do with this as well, if you don't mind. With our Seat Aside Act defensive driver training program, we also have a training management center where there are the corrective action modules. Every one of these things can be put together. There are hundreds of titles to choose from on that. Again, just like Michael was talking about with Luma, these things can be arranged, they can be grouped together, they can be put out to individual drivers that are using and sharing the application as well. But if you want more information about this from JJ Keller Solutions in this way, give us a call. Reach out if you already have a sales rep. Reach out to them and say, hey, I was on this town hall meeting with Brandon Wooden and Jim Worsdale and Janice Bowers. And I understand you might have some training videos that you can turn us on to. So definitely reach out, and we'd love to share with you what we do there.
And one last thing, if I may.
Of course.
And I'm not a paid spokesman for anybody, unless it's my wife.
There you go.
But I've been using JJ Keller since 1996. I started using JJ Keller when I was heading up safety at Robert Hansen Trucking out of Delavan, Wisconsin, and I've used JJ Keller ever since.
We appreciate it so much.
Oh, you bet. And you guys do it the best. You're straightforward. There's no trying to sell you something that really doesn't fit the mold. If you can do it, you let us know. If you can't, you let us know that as well. And I just want to encourage everybody, if you're not active customers of JJ Keller, give them that opportunity, because you're not going to find anything better, and especially out of a Wisconsin-based company. But I'll leave you with this. I'm from Chicago, so go Bears. Bye.
I knew that was coming. I thought
Brilliant.
That was going to come from Christopher, but I knew somebody from Chicago was going to say the Go Bears.
That's brilliant.
We appreciate it so much, and thanks for the plug. Hey, Jim, it looks like you're going to have a different person on the show next time that can actually plug our products better. But
yeah,
we appreciate
fantastic.
We appreciate your patronage of and that you hang with us to see how we can get better at this together. We really do appreciate that.
Yep. So we do have a special. There's our same shameless plug. We do have a special offer, 10% off of any or free training assessment, or 10% off of any PODD product in the next month. If you are interested, we've had a couple clients come from these conversations, and they've been very pleased with what we've had to offer. So if you want to have a conversation, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll be excited to explore what your training needs are and figure out what next steps would be. So with that being stated, our next driver training town hall is November 13th. We've had to kind of push it up due to the holidays because there's a lot going on. So, safety cultures at different stages of our driving career and what that looks like. We've got that in November, and then December, we're going to actually do a review of the year. So lots of really cool stuff coming over the next 2 months. We'll open the floor for the last 5 minutes if anybody has any questions or any comments to bring up. Thank you all for attending.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you so much. Yeah, let us know what you think.
All right, and while we're waiting for people to get brave, and I'll go on camera. I know I'm always like
there
behind
she
the curtain.
is. Yes, this is the wonderful Wizard of Oz behind the scenes. Janice, we can't do this without you, and we certainly appreciate you jumping in and doing this for us. Everybody, I would give her a huge round of applause. She's the person, the great and powerful Oz that puts all of this together. So if you like this format, if you like what we're doing here, please reach out, give us a comment, tell us you like it, love it. If you want us to do something different, please let us know. Janice, go ahead. Tell them how they can do that.
Well, I put a couple links in throughout. So if you missed the last September meeting, you can watch that on YouTube. I also put a link so you can go ahead and start registering already for the November 13th. So we're not even going to make you wait a month for the next one. So I just wanted to put that in there. But you can reach out. You can put your questions into the chat. You can, if there's topics that you want, please put that in the chat as well. And we are here and kind of designing these for this audience. So please keep the questions and the lines of communication open.
Thanks, Janice, so much.
Yeah.
Folks, stay safe out there, be a team, and get the most out of your drivers by engaging them as a team. We sure do appreciate you all being on this call, your commitment to safety in the industry, all of it. You are the reason why we can feel safe when we're out there on the road. So keep up the great work. Let us know if we can do anything for you. Jim, final thoughts before we close?
No, we'll see you in November. Hopefully y'all can jump back on in November and have some great conversations with us. So look forward to the conversation.
Tell your friends, be safe. Thanks everybody for joining.
And go Pack Go. Sorry,
go
Michael.
Packers.